And welcome back, everybody, to my 6th podcast. So, I know the last few ones have been a little bit long, and actually the last one was probably the best one we've had so far, considering what topics it held and what it covered. But, I'm going to do everybody a justice. I'm going to try a shorter one. So, with that being said, I've cut out a few things. We're going to hit the topics that need to be hit, and hopefully you'll be enjoying what I'm saying, or you'll find some interest, or hell, who knows what you'll find. Hopefully something worthwhile, so you'll keep coming back and checking me out. So, on this cast, you don't want to miss what I'm going to be saying, because I'm going to be saying a whole lot, and it's going to be a whole lot of stuff that has no purpose. So, I'll see you in a minute. And welcome back, everybody. It's good to be here. I'm glad you made it. That you're still here, that you're still listening, that we're existing. I'm still here, right? Yep, I feel it. I'm here. So, let's get on to the topics and news. As usual, I like to do my news and updates, something to get everybody up and going, because this is a weekly podcast, so I don't do it often enough. So, my weekly podcast itself is actually the news. My dates, usually I started them, I wanted to get them released and uploaded by Monday of every week, but as of late it's been a little bit troublesome trying to get a video every day as well as doing these, so I'm kind of getting them on in the middle of the week. I am going to try to aim for Monday of next week, but content comes very slowly sometimes, and then sometimes I just forget, so aim for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that's as late as I'll be on them. So with that being said, this podcast should be coming out now. So, you're listening to it. Hey, what's up? So, I've been doing daily Fallout because I love Fallout. It's the one I have the most content of. Also, not to be saying anything else, but I enjoy playing it so much, so I figured why not other people enjoy playing it. I know sometimes my content for Fallout doesn't necessarily have a purpose besides adventuring, me talking, me getting to some points, deciphering what the hell's going on, but I always love feedback. So seriously, if you watch it and you're listening to this obviously now, so if you watch it, let me know what's going on, what's going in your head, what points of view do you want me to present in the games, or what do you want me to focus on, or anything of that matter, because I'm working with what I like and what I find interesting and what I find enjoyable, and what I really enjoy is exploring Fallout. I love going into places, learning new stories, not knowing what the hell I'm doing. I don't like to have a concept of what's going on or a planned or a linear way of travel. I just like to go at it and see what I discover on my own without some objective telling me how to do it or go about it. So with that being said, that's kind of why Fallout has a lot of kind of loose in areas, loose feel to it, just kind of goes with what's going on. And that's why I've never really prepared for it. Obviously, in some of my games where I run out of ammo and I'm just yelling blatantly into the microphone trying to figure out what the hell's going on, which is not to say my other games have been any success, but that being said, Fallout's my favorite. I love it until I get tired of it or whatever happens, then I'll keep doing it. So that one's protracted. Also, with the Nuka World coming out and some of the other DLC content, with mods coming out at not the end of this month, which is June, and July, Fallout is going to be my mainstay because I've already been so in-depth in it. I'm level 70, which some people be like, oh man, what kind of time do you spend on it? You don't do blah, 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 blah. I really spend a lot more time surfing around in there, as in exploring some avenues as opposed to leveling up and doing stuff. And I craft a lot, which should level me up. But at a certain point, when you've crafted an item already, kind of defeats the whole purpose and you don't get much more leveling up. And I like to overcraft some stuff. So with that being said, Robot Island will become a fixation, will become a reality. Deathclaw Island will become true because I have this fixation and horror with Deathclaws. So with that being said, next game, which I'm doing a weekly gaming avenue, which I'm working on other games which are not as easily editable and controlling as, say, Fallout, which, like I said, I perfected Fallout. Not that it's perfected in a good way, as in people enjoy it, maybe, but perfected it in my ability to edit it record it and to actually make content fast in a faster pace. So with other games, it takes a little longer because it is just me. I'm also managing a lot of other things as well. So with that being said, my weekly gaming is coming to fruition. So starting this week, which should be tomorrow or today or day before yesterday, or what is days, what is time? I don't know. I can't read. Which, saying otherwise, it's already out. So it should be my weekly gaming, my newest premiere of a game, back to Morrowind, which I am training and working on Morrowind, which I did not realize how much this would encompass time. I literally I've played it when I was, not 2001, it was late. It was Xbox. I remember original Xbox. So that's been a month of Sundays, for real. But that being said, I forgot how much you have to delve into the game itself to get any, not content, but any fundamental enjoyment. Oh, okay, I'm lying. I found a lot of enjoyment, but fundamental enjoyment from other people seeing it. Because, let me tell you, I already have 10 hours into the game itself, and the progression is really tough. I've been spoiled by Oblivion and Skyrim, but I love wrong game, Morrowind, to such a degree that it's just, whew. Well, needless to say, when it comes out and you watch it, you'll only see accumulation of 15 minutes of my gameplay, which I shrunk down even further and cut out a lot, which, like I said, check it out, tell me what you think about it. Seriously, tell me what you think. Don't be mean, but just say, hey, listen, video, you could do this better, you could do something, let me know. Like it, I'll do more of it. Don't like it, then I'll consider doing less of it, because really I want people to like my stuff, but I like doing it, so that's why I do it. Also, with that being said, there are other games I'll be doing and working on, but my podcasts, I already said it earlier, my weekly podcast time and how they're being scheduled and coming out, but for this week, I'm going to be doing a shorter podcast. So with that being said, I'm going to try to cut it down to about maybe 30 minutes, maybe. I'm aiming for 30, but I may go over it, but I'm not going to go an hour. So with that being said, again, as I reiterate the same freaking words over and over because I have a lack of vocabulary. Bloody hell, man. If you could see me now, I'm moving my arms back and forth like, ay, buddy. So, with that. So, like I'm going to say, if I keep saying the same thing over and over, bloody hell. I am doing other games. Those other games in the weekly gaming, which are the new games that I'll be presenting hopefully soon. Oblivion. I've already started Morrowind, and I looked into Skyrim, and I really like Skyrim. I'm going to delve into that one too, but first off, I'm going in an orderly fashion. Morrowind, then Oblivion, because you got to do the worst ones. Game's not terrible, just if you played Oblivion and Skyrim, it's really tough to go backwards, and it's really tough to tolerate some of the dialogue and a lot of the discussions and the lore. Anyway, I'm digressing. Oblivion, that's going to be my next weekly gaming installment, including, if I can get Morrowind together fast enough, I'll have a new one every week. Also, Nobunaga's Ambition, which is a PS4 game which I really, really thoroughly enjoy as a strategy, but I've had experiences with previous strategy games, Europa 4 to be exact, which I'm still working on that one. I haven't delved into it as much as I wanted to before, but I am still learning how to make strategy games more entertaining, more theatrical, more viewer-friendly, as you would call it, because I love them. Love strategy games, but I don't know how to pronounce them. I can't speak. I don't know how to promote them to the ways that people would enjoy them, so I'm learning. If you can give me heads up, again, I'm begging, I am pleading, I am asking for the master race to consider listening to my plea and telling me something to make it more entertaining. I'm going to. Hopefully, more informal and information providing as well. Something along the lines where it's not a fucking bore fest, okay? My other game that I absolutely, positively, miserably hate, and I cannot seem to get past it because it still looks positively amazing. The storyline, the entirety of it looks great. Gameplay of it, for my style of use, or my use of gameplay, I'm not used to this style of gaming. I am horrendously, meticulously, and mercilessly being destroyed and killed in Bloodborne, which, if you hadn't heard of it, hadn't played it, and you got a PS4, what the hell are you doing with your life? It's really, really fun. Except for me, because I have literally almost spent 3 hours consistently dying continuously on the first level, which I'm a terrible gamer at that, obviously. You throw me in an RTS or, you know, RPG or 4X style of games and strategies, or anything hack and slash, or shoot the hell out of it without any tactics involving, oh god, yeah, I'll tear it all to hell in bits. But this game involves a lot of strategy, a lot of intense planning, in a sense of you have to time everything and you have to manage your fatigue, as well as understanding your hit ratios and how bullshit it is when you get knocked to the ground and then your guy takes, you know, this 5-second, oh, I gotta scratch my butthole to get up, and then all of a sudden this monster mother liquor with not a hatchet, but a friggin' hammerfell, that's a place, warhammer fucking bashes you on the ground and you instantly die. And you can't roll, you can't duck, you can't do anything, but he knocks you down, then he comes over and finishes you off, and you're like, well, what the fuck am I gonna do? So when that happens about, like, you know, 15 times in the span of an hour, okay, not 15 times, about 30, because we're being realistic here in time frames and amount of deaths. 30 times, you're kind of like at that point, seriously, why on earth do I like gaming? I want to break myself. Then you realize you've lost the receipt, so you can't take it back, so you're fully committed to the concept of the game. So yeah, even with all the upgraded perks that I have done, it's a pain in the ass. So literally the next video, when I produce this video of this game, is going to be thoroughly enjoyable if you like watching pain, misery, rage, as well as my actual gameplay of the game. So take that into consideration when you watch it. And if you're listening to this, be sure to stay tuned for that one, because that'll come at a later date. Also, I've been looking at some indie games, because obviously you can't afford anything because I have no income, because I'm a lowly piece of vomit as well as a starving artist. Yay! Anyway, that being said, indie games. There's a few I've been looking at. I've suggested it to several other people, but a game called Castle Crashers, which is an older game, not in the sense of like Xbox old or NES old, which is fucking ridiculous, but more or less Xbox 360 arcade genre, as well as Newgrounds, which, if anybody knows, I do actually enjoy Newgrounds to the fullest capabilities as any human being can. But that being said, I'm going to actually do some playthroughs of that, because I actually used to play that game religiously and intensively, which they also created Battle Block, I think, or Block Bros, or Cineblock. There's another one that the same Tom Felt and several other artists and creators made, which is pretty fucking awesome. It has Stamper in it as a vocalist in it, so it's pretty fucking great. But I'm digressing, as always, because my life never ends in the digression of my existence, and I digress about digressing. Anyway, Castle Crashers. Be sure to look for that one, because I am actually going to play that and give a demonstration. And I'm announcing it now because something to look forward to if you listen to this. And if you don't, then, you know, fuck you. You're not listening. And you don't hear me cuss you out and say other things. With that being said, I don't do weather no more, because what the hell? What is the point? You don't live here. You don't know where I'm at. I don't know where I'm at. I don't even know who I am. And I could be taking a shower for all you know, which you don't even hear the water. And you don't even know the weather out here. I could live in Alaska, be all Eskimo-y like, or, you know, not Eskimo-y like. That's racist as hell. But I could have a bundled up jackets, buy 10, 15 of them, and be hanging out with mooses all day long. And who will know? Who will know? So, with that being said, I'm going to go straight into the discussion and thoughts, because everybody gives a rat's about my thoughts and discussions, which they really don't. But, you know, it's more therapeutical for me, so I don't go on a rampage destruction. Not in the same sense as a rampage, it's like, like the game, you know, with a big... Does no one else remember the PlayStation game where you rampage, you go through cities and you just total rampage, you destroy cities as a giant ape, a total annihilation? That was one game too in the PS2, Like, you just go in, destroy entire cities, and you're a giant monkey or a giant lizard or any of the sorts. It reminded me, I seen a great Godzilla game, but it's a one-player game. What the hell? Seriously, when you get Godzilla, you have to have not only multiplayer online, which, you know, it's 50-50. Games of that kind of genre and, you know, entertainment don't garner a very big population of multiplayer, I feel, online. Whoever doesn't agree with me, that's fine. You can go stick your head in the dirt. I don't give a rat's, because it really does not. Unless you have the initial play when they first come out, you have a small niche. The online play doesn't last very long because it just doesn't seem practical to have it going on forever. And it doesn't. It doesn't last forever, which, speaking of other games that have niches which are awesome multiplayer but have a really small multiplayer field and DLC content for it sucks bullshit, because Game Workshop could eat a big one because they fucking they're not communists, they're fascists to the degree of totalitarianism. Sorry, unless anybody knows what I mean by Games Workshop, they'll know that I'm talking about Space Marine, which was fucking brilliant. Story is exceedingly short. Gameplay is pretty solid, controls are pretty great, but seriously, the multiplayer on it is awesome unless you're competing against some Brit in England or United Kingdom, which is pretty much essentially what you are doing, because they're the only ones that play the game anymore, and they're the only ones that actually actively play on the servers, which is, you know, great and all until you're looking for a match for almost 45 minutes and you're like, holy freaking hell, where are they? And then you lag like crazy because their entire their entire internet speed is bollocks, just bollocks as hell compared to yours, and you're just like, what in the am I doing with this game right now? Seriously, it has such great playability. You know, literally, if they had not only did, I doubt System Link even exists really anymore, but if they had done multiplayer there, man, Space Marine would have been a little bit more solid of a hit, because then you could introduce it to friends, and then friends would be like, oh man, that's pretty cool, can I borrow it? And you'd be like, no, forget you, man. And then they either go out and get it or they'll never play it. But either or, you still won't let them borrow it because they never bring your game back anyway, unless, you know, you have a set of friends that have values a little bit higher than, you know, 8th grade education. Then you're set. Chances are you get a disc back that's scratched up, or you're missing a case but you still get the disc. So, you know, it depends what kind of friends you have. I have terrible ones, obviously, since that's the ratio I go by on friend calibers. As I said, we are into discussion, so I was discussing about games other than the things I'm doing for my channel, which, needless to say, look, my channel is what it is, and I have a website, which it's 50-50. I'm playing with it right now. They both serve a purpose. So, you know, give them some support, or, you know, check them out. Support by sharing, support by whatever. I'm not going to plug that in right now because I got a section specifically designed in my podcast to give plugins and shout outs and all that malarkey, so then people can either be like committed to hear that at the very end, or they're not. So, it's whichever. So, take it as you will. But for the legitimate discussions and thoughts, my thoughts on a lot of situations, our current predicament in the world sphere of influence, the 2008 Great Recession. Now, picture this. They said this was as bad, if not almost as worse or as horrendous as the Great Depression in the 1920s, which is comparatively true. Which is also comparatively true is the recovery. Now, have it as you will, the Great Depression issued in the not the Great Compromise, but the New Deal, which FDR initiated upon his election into the office to challenge the Great Depression that had arose from it, which in the 1930s, okay, I'm going to be sparse with my dates because I'm being vague. I'm just going to hit the general dates, but I'm going to give you concrete topics. Like I said, the New Deal is an actual action and policy that he initiated in the domestic affairs of the United States. So you can look that up, but don't hold me to the dates because the dates are very not speculative. They're in the right area, but they're not detailed right. Like if you're you're looking for the exact date of the initiation, probably 1933, 1934, and the 1930s is where I'm going to give you, because, yeah, I'm terrible with dates. But regardless, I digress. He issued the New Deal, which was this huge government initiation work programs, which focused huge. It focused greatly on American infrastructure and providing stability in construction and development of infrastructure in America, which was, huge dam projects, huge road works projects, everything that, the government is good at bolstering up in order to initiate more jobs, to create better trade flow, to create business opportunities for the rest of the world. Now, with that being said, it wasn't a great overhaul that brought economic prosperity and optimism to America like it was, expected, because people expect things, even back then, not instantaneous to the degree that we believe in it. Like, I can literally click on my phone right now and have a message sent out to somebody in China and they respond back. Not that instantaneous. More like the instantaneous of, a few months and all of a sudden the world's making leaps and bounds. But it was making gains, but not the gains necessary to overturn the high unemployment rate and the high deficits and the huge global catastrophe of the economy. What did bring about world and global prosperity was World War II. Now, the whole the catastrophe that is World War II was originally spearheaded during the Manchurian incident back in 1930s, early 1933, 1936, when Manchuria was invaded by Japan proper. Now, prior to that, Japan was having active engagements in there and invading Shanghai, but it wasn't an outright war. It was more or less supposedly under the defense acts of defending their property, defending railroad claims, defending Japanese citizens and Korean citizens, which were propagated by militarists in the control of Japan. But I'm digressing, getting too detailed in what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is America came out of the war and came out of the Great Depression because of massive amounts of government spending on the war effort, which put a lot of people in the jobs, because a lot of American soldiers were obviously men sent over to Europe and in the Pacific to fight off the invasions, which prompted American spending like crazy, because you had to feed the troops, you had to supply the war materials, you had to supply your allies, you had to, there were jobs needing to be filled, and there was demand, extreme demand. American industries like the automotive factories, Ford, Chevrolet, Buick, all them guys, changed over to war industry, and they developed war products. Boeing has their start here. A lot of these industries had their calls to fill the American government contracts that needed war materials. So, boom, all of a sudden you have this industrial growth capacity that's just meeting crazily. By the end of the war, you have a production and industrial capacity that's just overwhelmingly. Like, for instance, let's do a comparison chart real vaguely and shortly. Japan was producing maybe 2 to 3 battleships in a span of, I believe it was 5 years. You can correct me on this. You can check out my stats, which I don't mind. I have been wrong once in a blue moon, and if I've been wrong, I apologize. But the general concept of what I'm saying is correct. Japanese initially were building warships relatively quickly for the time period. By the end of World War II in 1945, the Americans were outproducing the Japanese almost 10-1. For every warship Japan was building, or battleship, or aircraft carrier for that matter, America was producing and sending out almost 10 to their 1, but on almost a monthly basis they were doing this. The American industrial machine was tapped into during World War II, which led the opening of industry jobs to women, and African Americans, which actually prompt them to move their standard of living from just being house or agriculturally stranded to the industries of the North, which gave them new commercial or consumer powers that they had never had before, thus initiating a whole widespread of social unrest and civil strife all the way into the late 50s, early 60s, which you will have the whole civil strifes and the everything's. It's a calamitous era that happens to it. But what I'm getting to is the initial collapse of economic turmoil on the global perspective that the Great Depression brought into America brought a socialist sort of action and causes, which led to World War II. World War II was not brought upon by Americans, but actually by its counter opposite. Socialist democracy or socialist democrats like FDR were some of the greatest and hailed the greatest heroes of our time, simply because they initiated social actions, like socialist democratic actions, like social securities, social welfare, which gave Americans a safety net for when they lost jobs. They gave them a small stipend and food subsidies, which we all consider stamps, to keep them afloat until they could get work, to save the American population. These safety nets were initiated during FDR and the New Deal. A lot of them were enhanced, actually, because that's what he was promoting and he was trying to do, because you support your nation. Now, the opposite that happened was, obviously, if we look in history, Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany were the fascists. Yes, they did similar programs, but instead of, supporting the concept of helping the country by unity and rebuilding the nation's infrastructures for the idea of business prospects and opportunities, they persecuted, say, the Jews, or Juden as they would call them. They persecuted a lot of them, and a lot of their holy sites too, which, when you do that, you can confiscate and make them outlaws. You confiscate a lot of their lands, which they were also planning for what Hitler considered Lebensraum, which I may be saying it wrong, so if I am, I'm sorry. Lebensraum, or living space, as the translation would have it. That's the correct term of it. The living space. They were building this war machine to give Germany the necessary grain and living space that she was believed to deserve and was destined to have. So they were beefing up this militarism to build up their armaments against the Versailles Treaty, which was already just a horrendous ordeal created initially, but that's World War I. We're not getting into that. So Germany pushed for militarism and fascism in the sense of nationalism, where a certain race believes is superior to others. And so they have this dogmatic system going on, which promotes militaristic ideals, attack scapegoats on blaming other people, which you see something similar happening in America, but which is much different, is that America has strong Republican traditions that govern a lot of how our Constitution is read, and we've held true to those sways. But as of late, you have the extremes of two sides coming up. So the biggest thing is what I'm comparing to is you have two countries. Their traditions are exceedingly different to one another. Germany was up until the late 1800s, 1890s, after the Franco-Prussian War. I think it was 1870 or 1875. I could be wrong on my dates. Again, don't quote me, just quote me on my terms. The Franco-Prussian War had the unifications of the Rhineland, which led to the creation of Germany as the state under Chancellor Bismarck. And I want to say 1890. Don't quote me on that, but it is the unification of Germany becoming a nation among Europe, which gives them not much of a tradition other than their Prussian tradition, which is predominantly militaristic in nature, because the Confederation of the Rhine, or that's using a Napoleonic term, but all the German principalities, including Prussia and including Austria is not a principality, but they were always considered part of the Holy Roman Empire, and they had a stake in it, they believed. But needless to say, that had a tradition of being constantly at war, outcompeting one another, and constantly rivaling one another and fighting. America hasn't always had that at all, actually. America, from the 1776, obviously, to the Declaration of Independence, all the way up to the 1781, the ending of the War of Independence, all the way up till, you have your scuffles and wars, War of 1812, and, you had your Spanish-American War, you had your other wars, the Mexican War, the American-Mexican War, and all those other ones, which actually happens much, much later. Well, no. It happens at the cuspids. No, that happens after the American Civil War, which was the first real dividing point where America challenges itself internally, North and South, because of different views of agrarian slave-holding states' rights, pro-Southerners, against the abolitionist, North American industrialist sense of federalism in the North. So you had that. Two extreme situations and two extreme idealisms that come together to challenge one another, and you have an open arm revolt, which after the Civil War initially says and makes the statement once it's done and the Union is the successor and the United States is fully reunionized, it says, okay, war and conflict are not a means of anything in the United States. You cannot secede, and it is not an acceptable way out of the Union. You'll have to accept what befalls you. Okay, so after that, America stays in the sense of the Union. Now, where I'm getting at is, there are a few times in American history where extreme polarization of ideas and concepts have been similar and innate. There have been other scenarios beforehand, but not to the extreme where people are so entirely dissatisfied with their government to the point where there wasn't some sort of calamitous situation. There was a Gilded Age which happened, but you had a strong individual like Theodore Roosevelt, who was not only an anti-establishment kind of person, but he was an intelligent, a strong man. An intelligent, strong man that was not afraid to do what was necessary and had a moral compass as well. And who was, overall 100% better human being than current ones that we're dealing with today in our turbulent times. With that said, America is facing a similar situation where you have the elements of a economic downturn, which the Great Depression caused, as well as the 1930s Great Depression, 1920s, pardon me, 1920, yeah, okay, 1920s, 1930s, Great Depression, sorry, I'm being vague with my dates. Economic downturn caused an entire social calamity, which in 2008, you had the Great Recession that caused a social calamity as well. Maybe not in the extremities, but it did. It caused a lot of Ferguson, you can name them, where racial tensions and social calamitous or socially, disenfranchised groups of our economy and our world or our country felt the pressure of the downturn. So you got to look at the formula. Economic downturn leads to social unrest, which has happened, which lead to radicalization of ideas and identities, which did happen. Because during the economic downturn of the Great Depression, you had America being more isolationist in their policies. They started looking inward. They started building up these walls, being against globalization of the world, which can only hurt because when we're trading with the world and we start building up these walls saying, okay, we're not going to buy your products, but you got to buy our products, all of a sudden they're going to do the same thing. They're not going to buy our products. So thus, they won't buy. They're not going to buy ours, so we can't buy theirs. Thus, trade starts to grind into a halt, because our own consumers are not going to buy our own products necessarily because they don't have the purchasing power to do it. Thus, with that being said, you have the rise of these radical ideas, which isolationists and these anti-internationalists, pretty much, which is the same thing but just different terms, have the stake in World War or the Great Depression era, which cause all kinds of crazy, lofty ideas about foreign policy, crazy ideas about domestic affairs and everything, which is happening today. We have the radicalization of ideals and identities where we feel like, okay, the world's against us. We need to be fighting them. We need to be this. We need to be that. Forget them. Forget the world. Let them do whatever they want. Also, mentality. It's not a complete isolationist mentality, but it is very similar because we do feel like we need to recede from the world stage to handle our own affairs, which truly we do, but that does not mean that we must escape from the world stage, because in this scenario, we used to be the sole homogeny of the world, which is true, but there are rising stars, hence Chinese are rising up to take on that homogeny or challenge that homogeny, as you would. They may not be, there's a whole scenario why that's not going to be a problem necessarily yet, but it is a problem that we have to address at some point, but not necessarily with force, but with stern action, and not a receding, stop, okay, you need to stop, oh no, how about you stop now? Timidness does not necessarily work in that theater. You need to have strong words where you don't necessarily draw red lines in the ground, but you say, hey, listen, you start taking away things and you start slowly going at it, but you do it strong enough to make a point get across to where you can still. Tough actions are necessary to stern or to stem aggressive actions where people are thinking nationalistic now. That's the big thing. We're having nationalistic ideals resurging all across Europe. Look at the Brit exit. That's a big one in the European Union. They are looking to exit the European Union because they are afraid of Muslims. And xenophobia is rampant. And a downturn of economic policies, which they feel they're better off getting out of the EU, which is not true. None of it is true. Xenophobia is the biggest killer, as well as fear. Fear is the greatest decimator of any progress, any prosperity, of any system in the world. You cannot survive with this kind of unadulterated, unchecked fear. As FDR once said, quotingly, maybe paraphrasing out loud, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The fear of the unknown, the fear of something we don't understand is going to be our greatest downfall, when the idea of community with openness and understanding one another and working to make a compromise was our greatest strength as a country, which is true in America's history, is the greatest strength and unity. Flying behind one banner and believing in it. You need to rely on your people. But I digress some furthermore. I was explaining radicalization of ideas and identities, which ultimately lead to the greater of all enemies and the greater of aggressions, which happened back in the 1930s when you have the Germans moving in on the Sudetenland unopposed because they believe rightly so, the Versailles Treaty was completely and horribly done wrong, and just this aggressive, evil piece of paper done by angry allies. This was the ultimate deciding factor where the Sudetenland should have been a whole different ballgame, should have been stopped. But it wasn't. Nor was the greater calamitous situation of the invasion of Manchuria by the Japanese, because the Japanese were not stopped there. The League of Nations wasn't able to do anything, nor they were actually able to do anything, but they did not have the stomach to stern up and say no and make affirmative action with sanctions or whatever possible powers they had vested to them to say no to the Japanese and stem the entire aggressiveness, which once aggression takes root and is proven to be successful, it can continuously grow like a hideous mutation, like cancer. Once cancer gets a foothold and you don't put it in check, it grows and mutates and spreads in the body until it either kills its host or weakens it to the point where there is no other option but something else comes in and kicks it out of the ground. You have to stop this sort of actions immediately. This also stems from economic downturn and also radical ideas with racial stigmas. They are vicious, malicious, and utterly just an abomination on the human psyche and the human front. You have to stop the idealism that it's okay to hate another person in the sense of them being racially different or socially different in a sense of religious tolerance. The America was founded on the concept of free religion. That doesn't mean you persecute. Because we're a predominantly Protestant nation or predominantly Christian nation, does not give us necessarily the right to attack other religions that come here in search of the freedom and the tolerance that we originally came here for. That opens a whole new basket, a whole new can of worms that I will not get into, but extreme actions come from these four things. Economic downturn leads to civil unrest, leads to radicalization of ideas and identities, which breed these dogmatic and these animatronic caricatures that lead to extreme actions. Everyone thought Hitler was a joke. When they first saw him in the elections, they said he looked like a clown. He looked like this funny little man spouting out these funny words that are just stupid and nobody will like him, which came to fruition when he won as German Chancellor. He didn't win it necessarily. He was placed into it because his party won the majority in the parliament elections. And under Hindenburg, he was placed under dictatorial, almost unlimited dictatorial powers when the entire Mark and the entire German economy collapsed. And Mark was reduced to just worthlessness. He was placed under dictatorial powers in the 1930s, early 1930s, all the way up till, the outbreak of the conquest of Sudetenland, the annexation of Austria, pretty much, the continued taking of the Sudetenland. I'm sorry, I keep reiterating that. The Alsace-Lorraine and the Rhineland was the first initial takeover. But the Sudetenland is the 1938, the calamitous situation that could have been prevented, but was not taken by even Neville Chamberlain, and several others. They did not realize the calamitous situation they were entering in, all the way up until the invasion and the fatal move of the 1939 invasion of Poland, which initially started the European front of World War II, which was already happening in 1936 with the proper invasion of Manchuria by the Japanese and the invasion of China and the attack on Shanghai, the invasion of Nanking, all of them. These situations were ably and probably could have been thwarted by able-bodied men who not only stood by and watched this, but able-bodied populations which were ignorant and fearful. They were needing their immediate problems remedied, and these men offered that in the sense of simple answers, simple bullshit excuses to say, listen, this is the person that causes your problem. This is the situation that is caused by this person causing your problem. If we get rid of all of them, boom, you're going to be helped. You'll be safe. This enemy, you make scapegoats. You make enemies out of people that nobody understands and nobody knows. And then you attack those people to escape your own problems, when we as a nation, United States, need to face our own problems on our own terms, and we need to work together. We are an entire nation a melting pot full of races, populations, religions, socialites, everything. We have to go back to our roots as a traditional republic. It has had its problems, but we've persisted and persevered this far to become one of the most powerfulest nation in the world. And if we prefer to stay at that position, which this is as nationalistic as not nationalistic, let me reiterate, it's not. It is patriotic as possible. Patriotism and nationalism are separate in the sense that I believe in America, not in the sense of nationalistic ideas where my nation doesn't need other nations, but patriotic where I want to put my nation first and foremost, and we are not superior, but the concept that we are together a prominent nation with moral standings, and we must help the others, help our allies, and help weaker nations to become better, but while still staying firm that we need to become united and strong against the adversities and the enemies that we potentially face in the future. But we don't do it by radicalizing and racializing, I made up that word, becoming racially impaired and disunity in this sense and making scapegoats. That is not the method. That is not how we do it. We don't need to become socialists, and we don't need to become, government doesn't need to take care of us. But the fact of the matter is, becoming fascist is not the answer. Becoming militaristic, becoming racist, becoming pig-headed ignoramuses are not the path that we need to take as Americans. We need to take the higher road and work to build and make our lives better, as well as protect our citizens and protect ourselves from every encroachment of not only rights, but as ourselves as people, from our own government and foreign entities as well. That being said, take a look at World War, the priorities of the early 19th or 20th century. Look at the actions that were ultimately led to where we are now. Look from starting, you can look either prior to, or you can look exactly at the Great Depression and look at both Germany and America. Look at France. Look at all the countries. Look at them all. Look how they got to where they did. Then compare it, the Great Depression of the 1930s, comparative to the Great Recession of the 2000s. Compare them and watch the similarities fall into place. You have to look at the broader picture and not at the extremities of the details. Once you do, you will see why the concept of history repeats itself has never been more truer than it is in today's day. So you need to don't take my word for it. Go look it up. Prove me wrong if I am. Go look it up. Look at America in World War II. Look at America in the Great Depression. Look at Nazi Germany. Look at the Reichsmark. No, that's the army. Sorry. Look at the Wilhelm. Nah, that's the Emperor of Germany. Obviously, I'm proving myself wrong. But the fact of the matter is, look at Germany, the democratic Germany prior to the rise of the Nazis, before the Great Depression, all the way up till after the Great Depression for us, as well as the world, to World War II, beginning to the end. You will see what is in store for people of that nature and what came from all that. But I've already overextended my time on my discussions and thoughts. But funny thing is, that was just the tip of the iceberg in that scenario that I play on. With that being said, anybody and everybody is welcome to make a comment. Anybody is welcome to prove a point. Anybody is welcome to prove me wrong. I am always open for a discussion. I'm always open for everybody's thoughts. I only do not accept, and I say it fervently and vehemently, that I do not accept ignoramus. Oh, that's stupid, that's wrong, that's ignorant, blah, blah, blah. And you do not prove at least a point. If I need to prove my points on anything I've said and you challenge me to that, I will accept graciously, and I will show my source material, I'll show the editor, the author, and I'll put the pinpoint of the page. I will do a citation on it and prove my points necessarily well on what I need that you're challenging me on. But do not come to me, or do not come at me and try to prove a point without any validity or validation on your points, or proof, or any citations on yours. So, with that being said, I welcome any and all free thinkers, and understanding that we need to come together in these times of need. So, with that said, I end discussions and thoughts sections, and I go to the closing. If you haven't already, but you're listening now because some misfortune, these fine winds, trade winds have blown you across to listen to my podcast, subscribe now. I have more to come. Provide some insight. This is the channel that I want. This is the show that I want other thoughts. I want everything. I want people. Come to me. Let's enlighten each other. Let's do something. All I do is spit stuff, but I don't want to spit garbage. I don't want to spit hatred. Nothing of that nature. I just want to share a few laughs, share some ideas, spread idealism, spread romanticism, spread it all. The Enlightenment, intelligentsia. That's what I want. So subscribe if you liked what you've heard, or subscribe if you like my other videos. I always love people to chime in and come around. As I reiterated for the 1000th time, I'll stop. Check me out on my Facebook. I have a page. Cool, right? Wow, everybody's on it. It's more updated, and it's constantly featuring different, articles I find, different things I find interesting, videos, whatnot, what have you. I'm very active there, so hit me up there if you want to have a chat or whatever not. It will be in the link above or either on my channel page. Click it there. My Imgur, I have all kinds of pictures randomly there, which I love pictures. So you'll see all kinds of stuff, and I'm going to be starting all kinds of new albums and stuff focused on certain genres and certain eras and stuff. So go check it out. It's in the link. It's connected somewhere around here. You'll see it either below. It will actually be below. Go click on that link. Go check out my photos. See what you like there. My website, www.cohortco.com. Go check it out. It has some more of my mainstay work, more of my permanent features that I've actually worked on, my travels overseas, my working with other countries and such. Go check it out. It has all kinds of cool pictures as well, but it has more of my personal pictures that I've actually worked with. My music accreditation, which is always being found on Newgrounds. Go check those guys out. There's some audio players as well as audio artists there that do a real bang up job. They make the stuff their heart's content. Go check them out. I have a link of the current song you're listening to now down below in the status or the comment section somewhere right below the video. Go click it. Go check them out. Give them a like. Go check out some of their other music. Go see what you can find there. Gotta support your local community. Even if it's local internet, you gotta support them. Because if you don't support local, then you're not supporting anybody. You're hurting. So, with that being said, thank you for listening to me ramble and go all sorts of tangents. Because without you guys or without anybody listening, my therapy, I would be broke even further than I already am with my therapy sessions needed. And I went over my limit, but I am not going to hit the hour long, so we're good. Anyway, guys, till I see you in the next time you listen, till you listen to my voice again next time, or until you watch my other videos. As I love to say, and I'm making a catchphrase, hopefully one day, possibly, who knows, stay classy, my friends, and don't be nasty. And till next time, you guys, take care.